Hey guys, if you want to check out my spoiler-free review of Anomalisa, you can see it right here. There are some spoilery parts to this interview, so pay attention to the screen to skip those parts.
So, I remember in an interview for Synecdoche, New York, that one of the things you wanted to do getting into directing was making sure that it didn't overpower your creativity with writing. For instance, not wanting to have every sort of practical aspect of filmmaking in while you're writing the screenplay. Do you feel as though you retained that for this screenplay?
Well, because this was written as a play, and there was no intention of having to figure out how to produce it, I think you're right. What I said was that once you direct, you realize, okay, it kind of constricts you, thinking, well, how would I do this? How could I afford this? Can I do this? And I never had to think about that before. So, in this case, again, I didn't have to think about it because it was a play, and it was no expectation it was going to be a movie.
Did you guys oversee most of the animation, or were there departments that did things without you? Was there a Bible that they had to follow to make sure that every sort of movement was consistent with the...
We oversaw every... It was a very small crew. And actually, a lot of the department heads were first-time people in that position, because we didn't have the money to start with to hire the A-list puppet fabricator or the A-list animation supervisor or whatever. So we promoted people or hired people that were super passionate because they wanted to work on people that were working in animation and couldn't believe that someone was going to make a Charlie Kaufman stop-motion animated feature, so they were willing to work on it for much less money, and we were supporting them because of their passion for the project. But everything came from Charlie and I. Like every shot, the lighting, all the animation, every movement, it happens so slow, so you can oversee everything and really manage the process.
Maximum creative control.
That was kind of the whole intention we had going into this, and why we did it on Kickstarter in the first place, and everything was maximum creative control.
And with puppets, it's complete control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't talk back.
Now that both you and Spike Jonze have successfully sort of filled in for each other's places, now that you're directing, now that he's writing, you've both done a great job with that. Do you see yourself ever collaborating with him again in the future, or are you just like, now I can't let go of the reins of being a director because of that creative control?
I loved working with Spike, and we're good friends, and I would work with Spike again. We've talked about it over the years, and it might happen, but it's so difficult for me to get my own things going that I kind of have to focus on that.
Yeah.
And if I'm getting a little traction, I don't immediately want to go back to being a screenwriter only because I want to do both. But certainly I would work with Spike again. I would work with Michelle again, and we've talked about that as well.
Awesome. Duke, what was the biggest challenge coming from television into a feature film? Was it essentially the same thing on a larger scale, or were there any unanticipated challenges that arose from having it being such a large project?
This in particular was nothing like anything I'd ever done before. A lot of times when you're, in television, you're doing animation and you're kind of following the traditions and norms of the medium. It's an animated thing. It's supposed to look animated. Specifically with like the Community episode I did, it was like we were trying to be like Rankin Bass, old Christmas specials and stuff. This was like we're not making a cartoon. We're using this medium as just another way to tell a story, and this story in particular is a very real, soulful thing. And how do we apply that to this medium? So it was a lot of, even though I have experience in animation, it was all figuring new things out and discovering new things, and it was very challenging.
What was the most challenging scene to film?
The sex scene.
Yeah.
It took 6 months.
For what reasons?
because we wanted it to feel real and honest, and we didn't want it to be a joke. Like there's things that are funny because they are
Leading up to
Human,
it, especially.
because
because they're human.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they're human. But we wanted people to feel like this was something that was relatable to their experience and have it be authentic. And I mean, and there's technical reasons. Two silicone puppets pressed against each other.
Yeah, not just Team America, right?
Yeah, it's really challenging, and we had to invent a type of foam called dragon skin that's inside, so the bodies could compress and they could.
Crazy.
When the naked puppets bend, they have folds of fat, and taking clothes off and wrinkling. It's like one of the most complicated pieces of actual animation that I've ever seen.
I thought it was great, and I thought that it was really it had a level of intimacy that you don't really see in many films. And I guess also to parallel Spike Jonze's Her, there was that scene near the beginning with Joaquin Phoenix, and the first sex scene happens. And I get a lot from those just emotionally, but I always find that there's a couple people in the audience that just start to giggle and like, I don't know, like sex is just some weird, crazy concept to them where there was humor involved beforehand, right, and leading up to it, but I could tell that there was a lot of seriousness and intimacy. And I kind of get bothered by people that start giggling like that. Do you guys empathize with that at all, or?
I think some of the giggling that comes in this particular case has to do with, oh, puppets having sex.
Yeah,
This is going to be great because of Team America, or just the idea. And I think that the thing that's interesting, when it starts, it stops. You know, by the middle of the sex scene, it's suddenly quiet, and I kind of think that's great because the expectations are dashed, and you're now suddenly feeling like you're watching something maybe you shouldn't be watching, like it's private and between these two people, and that means you're thinking of them as people. And you know, and I think often people laugh at sex scenes because they're uncomfortable, and there may be some of that too, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with any reaction to anything I do. I kind of like it. I think it's fun to see different reactions from different people. You know, I don't want people screaming stuff out and, you know, distracting other people from their experience, but, you know, it's a movie audience with a lot of people in it, and they should have different reactions.
Whose idea was it to put Dino's name on a dildo shop, and how much involvement did he have as a producer on the film?
It was Charlie's idea to call it Dino's Toys.
And we asked Dino, and he was fine with it.
Yeah. I think he was more than fine with it. How much involvement? I mean, Dino was like the greatest producer ever in the sense that he was a facilitator. He got Charlie to say, sure, go ahead and get the financing, and he brought us together, and then he pretty much stayed out of the process.
Except to be supportive and, you know, like emotionally supportive, like, oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, this is great.
Dino's the biggest fan of the movie that exists in the world.
He's been posting about it on Facebook a lot.
I've
noticed.
I feel like he just because he just loves it.
Yeah.
He just really loves. This is his, like, he just wanted to see this movie made so that he could watch it. You know. So
he said that. That's pretty much what he said.
Yeah.
That's great. And that way you get to retain that creative control that you were seeking out with Kickstarter anyway.
Yeah, we've
by
had
still having a
control.
producer.
Yeah.
That's great. Charlie, I noticed that you have one writing credit for an episode of Moral Oral.
Yeah.
I couldn't really find that much information on it. Which episode was it? And did you write the whole thing?
I didn't write any of it. And I don't know what the episode is called. I had I had an anecdote that I told Dino that seemed to, you know, I thought would be an interesting idea for Moral Oral, and he really liked it, and I think he wrote the episode, and I didn't like seek out credit or anything. I just saw it on my IMDb page one day. So I mean,
that's great.
But yeah,
Dino, on a personal level, is like a very, you know, he's just kind of a generous guy, and he likes to, when he gets, you know, if somebody gives him a great idea that ultimately becomes an episode of one of his shows, he wants to give them credit for it because the idea came from them.
Mm-hmm. Is the condition that the main character experiences based off of a real condition?
Well, there's something called the Fregoli syndrome,
Mhm.
which is a psychotic syndrome in which the person believes that everybody else in the world is the same person. And I'd read about that, and I thought that was sort of metaphorically interesting. I mean, it's not like Michael literally suffers from this syndrome. It's just something that kind of was a jumping off point for me to think about other things, emotional things.
What non-existent Oscar category do you feel should exist?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Never had that question before.
Work that doesn't go appreciated that should.
People who make the Merkins.
Oh, you know what's a really important job that
Mhm.
I don't think people appreciate is script supervisor. It's an astoundingly important job, and I know, like, on Synecdoche, New York, the script supervisor she's there. You know, she's there at your side throughout the whole thing and keeping things straight, keeping time. It was a very complicated, timeline thing, and when they're shooting out of order, and she, continuity and all of that stuff. I think it's an essential job.
It's funny he says that because we didn't have one on this movie, and it was a nightmare, and would have been so much better if we had it.
Do you have a favorite moral oral episode and why?
Is that for both of us?
Yes, both of you.
I mean, I saw the first season, and I saw some of the third season. I think it's the third season, right? The one that got really dark.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great show, but I can't remember specifically. It's been a while. But I mean, I think it's a really good, surprisingly serious show.
One of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Aside from the episode that I directed,
Moral.
well, and also I did help in the third season. I really like the nature, the two-part nature episode.
That is a really pivotal jumping off point
Yeah.
for the show, actually.
Yeah.
It's a good answer.
That's my answer too, then.
All right. So yeah, I literally just wrote all these questions in the past like half an hour because I thought I would have more time to prepare. So we're kind of at the end of them, but I guess just a little self-indulgent question. Have you guys watched my Synecdoche, New York analysis? And
Well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think you're great.
Thank
I think
you.
you're great. I think that, I mean, I'm really impressed with the thought that you've put into that thing. And you're smart, and you're insightful, and you're very thoughtful. So, I mean, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're meeting with you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's,
I'm not going to tell you you're right about anything.
Oh, of
I won't do
course.
that, but I love it, and I think there's going to be a fifth one.
Oh yeah.
And I'm waiting for it. I mean,
I
I'm waiting
expect
for
like
it.
at least 6. So yeah.
Are you gonna do one on this?
Big analysis?
Yeah.
Possibly. We'll have to see. It's all a matter of a lot of it with what I do is when a Blu-ray becomes available, especially, a lot of finding things is just going through it in editing software frame by frame. So I'm sure I'll pick
Oh
up
my
on
goodness.
a lot more
Yeah.
of it. Well, not like religiously for every single thing, but for Synecdoche, New York, I want to leave no stone unturned, right? Because
Yeah.
it's the type of movie where my review is going to be longer than the movie.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and
it's not that. I mean, well, it isn't from where I sit. I think it's really cool, and I'm impressed. So.
yeah, there's been an interesting parallel with Caden and myself, where just working on that review and trying to get things out in time, and all the amount of time I've been spending on it has sort of consumed my life, where I had to take a bit of a hiatus from
Sure.
it and come back to it.
Yeah.
Like the end of part 4, I'm just like, I need a break. I'm gonna work on some other stuff and come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Anyway, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm
Um,
glad we could make this work.